So welcome to this session. It's a very new concept and framework around how to secure your cloud journey. I'm the Vice President for Software Product Development of the Security and Cloud Identity products. I'd like to talk to you about this new framework, and we call it the Trust Fabric. You know, a fabric is nothing more than a piece of cloth, right? But when you look at that piece of cloth, it really has multiple strands that are woven through it that make it that fabric. So what I'm about to show you today is going to hopefully start to reinforce the concept of how we weave these various threads together to form this fabric of trust. I will talk to you about the emerging and evolving changes in the cloud that will and are impacting enterprise security. The requirements for realizing and for you all to realize what your trusted security framework looks like, what it should look like, that enables agility and compliance across your environments. I'm going to introduce you to this concept of the layered fabric of trust that provides defense that is in-depth to protect your critical data. We are going to spend some time considering how autonomous technologies actually stitch this thing together and how we can take it beyond the fact of where we are today of human-to-machine interaction and human-to-machine intervention. And finally, and this is where I think the Oracle piece will come in, is how you, in your enterprises, can actually leverage this trust fabric and build this entire landscape of trust and this fabric of trust for your own enterprises. So I got to give you the safe harbor statement, but let's jump right into the challenges. Now, I'm not going to, no amount of overstatement of the case can be done that we are living in an extremely complex, extremely ambiguous, extremely volatile, and uncertain world, right? You've got higher scale and complexity of technology. You've got far more complex actors and bad guys in there, including our own employees. And this, as a result of which, leads to an absolute explosion of access and information that comes to us about these security incidents. How is a human-to-machine interaction to take place that is going to enable us to be able to actually start to separate the wheat from the chaff? What is it that we can go after that we need to act upon? The explosion of BYOD and e-commerce and cloud computing is definitely creating all of these threats. You know, this is a great quote. I think this is a really cool quote. It is a war. Let's not kid ourselves about this. We are at war every day, every minute of every day. These threats are real, they're constant, they're mutating. Even now as we speak, I'm sure that there's somebody sitting out there that's coming up with a whole new way of getting into our systems and attacking us. What this drives is that the order of magnitude of the kinds of threats that we're receiving, and not only that, because of the order of magnitude of the kinds of threats that we're receiving, we really also receive a lot of noise. It's hard to tell whether something is a credible threat or something is just noise. How do we separate those? We can no longer do this, and our premise is that this has to be a battle and a war that's fought machine to machine. It can't be done human to machine anymore. When we talk about global challenges and we talk about global scale and scope, we talk about complex multi-environment, multi-technology stacks, heterogeneous environments that all of us are into, ranging from cloud, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid clouds, heterogeneous environments, Azure, AWS, Oracle Cloud, all of it put together. We're now just creating even further orders of magnitude of complexity, and our submission is that you're no longer going to be able to fight that on a human-to-machine basis. It's got to be machine-to-machine. We got to take the technology and take the fight back out to the guys who are attacking us and use those technologies that they're actually employing. Our world today is an autonomous new world. It has to be an autonomous new world. If we take a look at where we are, the perimeter no longer exists, right? Our traditional method has always been that we are talking about building castles and moats. We have been defensive. We've built this huge castle, and every time there's a new threat, we build the walls a little higher. We make the walls a little thicker. But now the perimeter is no longer inside the castle. It's not bounded by a set of walls. You compute anywhere. Everyone here in this room's got a mobile phone, has got a tablet. You're going to compute anywhere you want. You're going to sit in the coffee shop one day, you're going to be sitting in this conference room one day, and if the speaker's really boring like I am, I guess you're going to check your email. Right? Hey, by the way, that was a joke. All right. So, because the scenario has changed dramatically, we see that our perimeter has actually moved. The perimeter doesn't actually exist. And my submission is that the actual perimeter is the identity. Think about it, right? At a very fundamental level, you are sitting here today, but you're still getting into your corporate networks, you're getting into the e-commerce sites, you're banking, you're doing all of that based on your single premise of your identity. And our premise is that, and our submission is that, the real perimeter now is your identity. So, how does this stitch into this whole trust fabric concept? The trust fabric is a new framework that we've created. It's a new way of thinking about security. The old techniques, the way we've been doing things up to now, is no longer going to be sufficient for us to meet the sheer volume, the technology complexity, and for us to be able to combat it using tools of the past. So the trust fabric really is building out three things: a trusted platform to build secure applications and operate systems with the knowledge that their data is secure, the agility for you to be able to make you and your enterprises move to the cloud at your pace and on your timelines, and last but not the least, obviously compliant with regulations and standards. So let's dig a little more into that. What does the ideal cloud and security and identity trust fabric look like? I believe that it needs to secure the entire stack. We can no longer look at it as point solutions specific to, okay, here's something I'm going to use to protect my on-prem solutions, here on-prem apps, here's something I'm going to go and protect my cloud apps with, and here's something I'm going to now somehow cobble together to try and figure out how I can secure the hybrid world. So we believe that we have to be able to have a platform that's capable of doing it across any environment. Second, all environments, all applications. And third, it has to be intelligent, autonomous, self-driving, self-securing, and resilient. This is what I think all of you would agree that this is what we would love to have in our environments, right? So let's dig a little more into what that trust fabric really looks like, right? So this trust fabric, at its core, for all of us, our core is our data. And that's sensitive data. You don't want everybody getting access to it. So what I've got here is we've got a data layer, and that data layer requires to be protected, and that's where we come in with encryption. So we've got now encrypted data, so that's protected at the first level. Now, in order for you to have the encryption, now you've obviously got to be able to figure out how to manage that encryption. So there's obviously keys and creds that we need to now use. So that's your next layer of this fabric. Once you get that, then obviously you need to protect and manage the access to those keys and credentials. Who has access to those keys and credentials? Who can decrypt my data? So that's where you come in with your first level of identity and access. That's the next layer. Once we've got that layer, then you now start to take a look at, okay, how do I now start protecting my applications? Then you want to protect yourself internally using something like a CASB, right? We've got cloud visibility and data loss prevention. type of layer, which is CASB, which enables you to identify insider threats, external threats, detection of when anomalies are happening, predictive and analytical capability. Now you want to protect the app layer, which is your cloud firewall, which is your web application firewall. And then, obviously, at the cloud infrastructure layer itself. So across this spectrum, you need to be able to think of security as this entire fabric, because it is. We can no longer afford to take a look at a security framework that is strictly based on just saying, okay, I've got identity and access. All right, I'm going to put in a CASB solution here so I can figure out what my shadow IT is looking like. You have to look at this across the continuum and across the spectrum of what this trust fabric is meant to do for you and how you can build that trust fabric for your own enterprises. Now, let's add the next layer to that fabric. You've got three fundamental environments that we're all wrestling with, right? You've got your enterprise, your traditional enterprise on-prem type of environment. You've got your pure cloud environment. It could be private or public. And last but not the least, you're now in the process of your journey. Not everything is going to be a lift and shift into the cloud. You're not going to move wholesale into the cloud. You're going to migrate piece by piece, so therefore you've got your journey, and that gets you to your hybrid, heterogeneous environments. Need to be able to take a look at this fabric across, wrapping all of these environments. That is the way we are going to be able to build a complete trust fabric for each one of our enterprises. Yeah? I hope that makes sense. Because this is our premise. We want to secure the cloud in a multi-cloud world. We want to secure our enterprise infrastructure. And we want to bridge the cloud and enterprise worlds with the world of hybrid and the secure hybrid. Now I can talk to you about what Oracle's got. So with this premise, the perfect or the closest to what you're going to get in terms of being able to secure your entire enterprise end to end is what we built around using this trust fabric. The concept of the trust fabric has actually enabled us to build this completely integrated, fully developed solution across every one of these buckets. So they're built on 4 pillars: a data security component with our encryption and key management built into it, a user level, which is our identity and identity cloud service, a cloud security with our CASB, right, Cloud Access Security Broker, and app security with our own cloud application firewalls. And this whole thing is built into the cloud infrastructure with its inbuilt infrastructure level security in the cloud environment. Layered all over this is our monitoring and security postures that Oracle across this trust fabric is able to provide. So let's just recap for just a couple of seconds, right? Every layer that you saw in the trust fabric, right from your core data, all the way up to your infrastructure, and all the way up to your cloud infrastructure level, is that entire fabric. If we're able to stitch this together, then you've got a completely holistic fabric of trust and security for your enterprise. And what we've actually architected and built the trust fabric for our customers. Let's take another step forward. I want to spend a minute talking about autonomous and rapid detection and response. We've all talked about ML and AI, machine learning and AI as the emerging trends. Guess what? It's already here. Guess what? The bad guys are using it. And therefore, with the millions and millions of threats that are going to come at us and are coming at us even today as we speak, we need technology. We have the technology that today enables us to do just that. What does ML and AI do for us? And let me give you a little bit of a story here, right? So one of your senior vice presidents or vice president of finance in a bank is typically sitting in the office within the firewall, looking at financial records, loan disbursements, and all the rest of that good stuff. And that's the typical pattern of behavior that you see with this particular customer, with this particular user. Now, suddenly this person is probably off on a travel, and suddenly next day they are signing in from some country in Eastern Europe, in some coffee shop sitting over there, and you're seeing this suspicious IP, and this person's logged in as themselves. What do? Well, typically what would happen? No problem. Person's authenticated, they're into the firewall, they're VPN'd in, and you're done. But guess what? How do you know that? So what do? What this Trust Fabric is now going to be able to do with the ML and AI built into it is the fact that now you know the pattern of behavior for this person X. That pattern of behavior is already available within the system. Now this person's breaking away from that pattern of behavior. So what should the system do? The system's going to detect it and say, hey, here's an anomaly. This is not the usual pattern for this person. They don't work out of, Ukraine or wherever it is that they're sitting at, and they most certainly don't work out of a coffee shop. So CASB now is going to detect this. It's going to flag this off to our identity cloud service, and the cloud service is then going to say, hang on a minute, maybe we need another factor for authentication. And now that pops up a second factor for authentication and forces that authentication with that user. So as you can see, we're stitching all of these concepts together. One is the recognition that identity is the perimeter. So wherever you travel, your security is with you. Second, that identity forms the core around which this Trust Fabric is built. Third, any resource that's being accessed, especially at the data level, you require multiple levels of detection, and it has to be done autonomously. It can no longer be done by some security administrator sitting in one corner of the world trying to understand whether this person is actually in Ukraine or not. And that's where the system comes in. The Trust Fabric and the ability of the Trust Fabric to be able to respond to it and to be able to make the difference is really what we're about. So, what do we have here? You have an integrated and unified trust for your cloud journey. Integrated security, and integrated security across Oracle apps and services, and integrated across the cloud journey. And when I say integrated across the cloud journey, I'm not just referring to Oracle Cloud. This is across Azure, AWS, Google, you name it, we got it. We've even got it to the point where any of your regular apps that you're using, whether it's Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, this Trust Fabric is completely encompasses all of the, brings into account all of these plays. Whether it's an on-prem app, whether it's a SaaS app, whether it's SaaS content, whether it's a database that's sitting on our, in the cloud, whether it's on Oracle Public Cloud or on Azure or on AWS, because it's a fabric, it's able to wrap itself and cover itself and take any shape or form that's needed. That's the beauty of the fabric. That's what it is, right? We all wear clothes of different sizes and different shapes because it's a fabric, and all the threads weave into each other. Well, what do you get, obviously, with Oracle is Oracle. You get the services, you get the scale, you get the billions and billions of dollars of investments that Oracle puts into this Trust Fabric. And obviously, we look forward to having all of you here as part of and being a part of this Trust Fabric. What do you get out of it is obviously the trust, the agility, and the compliance. Here's a bunch of people like yourselves who are already embracing the Trust Fabric. Many of these I'm sure you recognize. And it'd be great to see all of you up here too. So, what's the road ahead? The road ahead is pretty straightforward. We're going to take this, and the Trust Fabric is constantly going to grow and evolve. the investments that are going into enhancing and building out the concept of the trust fabric with products that can back it up is a continuous process. And leading the charge out of India, wow, that was nasty. Leading the charge out of India is my team. I've got some of my colleagues who are sitting right here. I've got, Ashish over here who heads up the Identity Cloud Service. I've got Vibhor who heads up the Identity Governance Cloud Service. And I've got our Ravi Gupta who leads our overall governance practice and governance products. So thank you. With that, I leave it open. I don't know if I have time for questions, but I'll be glad to answer any. Thank you.